Hello everyone, and welcome to a new shorter series. I hope it's a shorter video series. And some people want their short videos. Welcome to CG Lookback. Now, before we get started with our first unit, which you can already see, and already saw from the title card, or from the title when you clicked on it, today we're going to be talking about CG units. And why am I talking about these CG units now? After CG Sid, and before the onslaught of whatever the hell Axstar will be, kind of feels like a good place to call it a break. Now what I mean by that is, basically we've seen all of the Veritas plus CG Hayu. Now, in the initial batch of CG units, I consider it to stop right before CG Raegen, and then continue on. But that was very clearly the first batch of main characters. So now that we've got into some of the previous antagonists that are also friendly and Hayu, I guess we include Hayu in this conversation too, even though he will probably be more in line with Axstar. Let's not get too deep into why this is. Basically, we've had a whole bunch of CG units. Now we're going to take a look back and see what difference they've made in the meta, whether they are still viable, and whether there's anything still good about them, even a little bit. And this might be a little bit more help for GL people. This might also just be for Japanese side players who are wanting to, take a trip down memory lane and maybe have a reason to play with these units again. Let's not think too hard about what I just said. Let's just talk about Raegen. So long story short, CG Raegen was the first one to come out after what felt like a pretty solid end to the first batch of CG units. And honestly, Raegen's still got a pretty cool sprite. We've seen a lot of different sprites show up in Brave Exvius, but the Fire and Ice sword, it's pretty cool. Not to mention that limit burst. I mean, disappearing swords that just hurt your enemies. How cool is that? And not to forget that victory pose animation. Strike it, Raegen. Anyway, long story short, how did this unit actually, get, what exactly is there to talk about him? A fair bit. TMR-wise, well, I mean, it's still a pretty valuable TMR today for any dual-wield unit. Well, a physical dual-wield unit. 50% limit versus fill rate, and 30% attack when you equip either a dagger, sword, greatsword, or katana. 60% when you mix and match. That's pretty cool. For any dual-wield unit, that's essentially really good. That is physical, I should mention, too. So long story short, this Trust Mastery is still good for physical dual-wield units in the game. We'll talk about dual-wield in a second. Super Trust Mastery-wise, it's a 36 attack, 16 defense, 22 spirit light armor with 40% to fire and ice resistance with a 50% limit burst fill rate. I've heard some people say, meh. Honestly, this is a pretty high attack on a light armor that still gives defensive as well as elemental resistance. And elemental resistance is pretty good, you guys. It's pretty good in certain trials. So long story short, Super Trust Mastery still stands up too. Now, Raegen came at a very interesting time. And so when I'm talking about timing here, I'm basically talking about, when the unit came out and what happened after the unit came out. And CG Raegen was basically kind of the one last hurrah for dual wield before CG Hayu came out and ruined everything. What do I mean by everything? Literally. Just literally, you guys. Everything. Oh my god. Dual wield has never been the same. And so Raegen came out at both a good time and a bad time. What do I mean by a good time? Dual wield was still in play. Raegen here had natural dual wield, so he seemed like a great unit, and he was a great unit. He also had some chaining abilities that were pretty damn solid, and then came the bad part of the timing, because shortly after, we found out that 7 stars were about to become a thing, and unfortunately, Raegen came out near the end of the 6-star era, meaning that Raegen was kind of stuck in 6-star hell. 7 stars came out. 7 stars were incredibly more powerful than any 6-star, and so people opted up to 7 stars and left Raegen behind. By the time Raegen got his 7-star, there was another unit. Well, there were a whole bunch of units that came out, but there was one unit that came out and killed the dual-wield meta, and that was CG Hayu. Say what you will about what resources you have right now, the fact is that Hayu came out and changed everything and got rid of dual-wield, which was kind of sad for Raegen because that cool sprite and cool animations and cool everything, well, dual-wield just kind of hasn't recovered ever since, which should tell you a little bit about his viability long-term. And so, if he does come out on the global side, I hope they push him just a little bit back so that he can come out once the 7 stars are out, because then he will get more attention before CG Hayu comes around and just ruins fucking everything. Really have no idea. Limit burst wise, still pretty powerful, especially in a 7-star. But his 7-star did make a big difference. Raegen had some good stuff in his 6-star kit. Came to fire and ice and, trust mass, his natural dual wield. He had some breaks that were even AoE. We're talking, I don't know if a lot of people remember, but Raegen has an 80 MP, 240% AoE, 3-hit attack that also just happens to AoE break 60%, full break. 60% is not bad. Okay, it's not 79% Orin, but this was a long time before Orin. It was another option for debuffing too. Now the 7-star kit just gave him more power, more chaining options, some extra fire, ice, and dark resistance, which essentially made him more, durable. And both of his cooldown abilities were really strong. They were a little bit difficult to use consistently, but they would add fire or ice to his attacks and belong to 2 different chaining families, so it gave him some more flexibility both in his equipment as well as what he could use. Plus the 7-star just gave him some extra stats. Now, here's the question. Is he still viable? Is he still good? Is he anything worth even caring about and using valuable EXP that I could be saving for X-Star? It's a lot to unpack there. But long story short, Raegen, as well as most dual wielders, don't exactly have a great place in the meta, except maybe for hybrid dual wield units. Hybrid dual wield units kind of have a benefit of high percentages on their attack, which makes up for their somewhat lower stats. Regular attack just don't quite have as much attack power as a lot of the current units that are so very strong. And there's something in my pocket just driving me nuts because it's digging into my side. It's on the ground now. So Raegen does still have consistently good chaining options, as well as some pretty powerful abilities in his kit, including one that, damages the enemy and MP heals. But until dual wield finds a new way to come back into the meta, and I mean something that makes it compete really hard with what true dual hand units can do right now, we live very much in a true dual hand world. Raegen is not exactly a chump when it comes to power. He's also starting to feel the age a little bit. And honestly, I don't know if enhancements will fix him. It really depends where they place his enhancements, but regardless of how good they are, until dual wield kind of gets a leg up on the true dual hand meta, Raegen might be a little bit difficult to use. That being said, I still have seen him a couple of times in a friend list or two, so that is, if nothing else, a little bit encouraging, but I haven't seen that person's account or what they have. So yes, this is how the CG Look Back series will go. We'll take one more look at, who's Limit Burst, if I can get around. And we will, in the future, be taking a look at the rest of the CG units that came out in this block. So next, there's no easy way to talk about it. Let's talk about the guy who effectively killed the dual wield meta. I guess change is not the worst. See you next time.